The funeral was wrong from the start. June Calloway stood beside her husband's grave in a black dress 2 sizes too large. She had lost 15 pounds in 8 weeks. The baby inside her, 7 months along, kicked hard against her ribs as if protesting what they were doing here. Burying Thomas Calloway, 34 years old, third-generation rancher, dead from what the death certificate called complications from pneumonia. But Thomas had not died from pneumonia. June knew this because the night before he passed, when fever made him delirious and his breath came in shallow gasps, Thomas had gripped her hand with surprising strength and whispered words that haunted her still. "Don't let Wyatt take the water. Promise me. The water is everything." She had not understood. Their ranch had nothing but 800 acres of drought-cracked earth cattle dying from lack of rain and $23,000 in debt they could never repay. What water? There was no water. The creek ran dry 4 months out of the year. The well barely produced enough for the house. And now, standing at the graveside while the minister read words that meant nothing, June saw the stranger. He stood 50 yards away beneath the skeletal branches of a cottonwood tree, not close enough to be part of the mourners, but not leaving either, just watching. Tall, she noticed, maybe 6'3", a cowboy hat pulled low over his face despite the June heat, denim jacket with the collar turned up, hands shoved deep in his pockets, shoulders tight like he carried weight no one else could see. June did not know who he was, but the way he looked down at the casket, the way his head bowed as if asking forgiveness from a dead man, sent ice through her belly despite the 90-degree temperature. Who was he, and why did he need forgiveness from Thomas? The minister's voice droned on, something about ashes and dust. June's sister Lucy held her elbow, steadying her when she swayed. Vera Calloway, Thomas's mother, stood rigid as stone on the other side of the grave. At 52, she carried herself with the rigid composure of someone who had spent decades hiding secrets. Face hidden behind a black veil, her hands clenched, white-knuckled around her purse. Wyatt Calloway, Thomas's older brother, stood beside Vera in an expensive suit that looked wrong here among the farmers and ranchers in their Sunday best. He checked his watch twice during the service. The stranger never moved, never looked away from the grave. And when the service ended and people began to drift toward their cars, offering June quiet condolences she barely heard, the stranger finally turned and walked away. Not hurried, not slow, just a man leaving a place he should never have come to in the first place. June wanted to call out, wanted to demand who he was and what he knew about Thomas, but her voice caught in her throat, and the moment passed. The stranger climbed into a dusty pickup truck and drove away, leaving nothing but tire tracks in the cemetery dirt and questions June could not answer. 3 days later, those questions would begin to find their answers. And June would learn that sometimes the dead leave behind more than grief. Sometimes they leave behind secrets that can save you or destroy you depending on who finds them first. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and coffee gone cold. June sat in a leather chair that creaked when she shifted her weight, trying to find a position where the baby was not pressing directly on her bladder. Attorney Douglas Finch sat across the mahogany desk, sweating despite the air conditioning unit rattling in the window. He kept wiping his palms on his pants and rearranging the papers in front of him. Vera Calloway sat to June's left spine, straight hands folded. She had removed the veil, but her face remained a mask. Wyatt slouched in the chair on June's right one ankle, crossed over his knee, radiating impatience. Lucy had offered to come, but June told her no. Family business, Thomas would have said, though June was beginning to suspect she did not fully understand what that meant. Finch cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, cleared his throat again. "Just read it," Doug Wyatt said. "We all know what it says. Ranch goes to June and the baby. Some token amount to Mother. Probably nothing to me because Thomas always was sentimental about bloodlines." Finch's hand trembled slightly as he picked up the document. "That is not exactly what it says." The words hung in the air. June felt her stomach drop. "What do you mean, not exactly?" Vera's voice cut like a knife. Finch read slowly, carefully, like a man defusing a bomb. "I, Thomas James Calloway, being of sound mind and body, do hereby make this my last will and testament." He paused, swallowed. To my wife June, I leave the house, all personal property therein, and $10,000 from our savings account. June's breath caught. 10,000. She had not known they had $10,000 anywhere. To my unborn child, Finch continued, voice shaking now, I leave 50% ownership of Callaway Ranch to be held in trust until the child reaches age 21. 50%. Wyatt sat forward. What about the other 50%? Finch did not look up from the document. To my half-brother Colt Hendricks, I leave 50% ownership of Callaway Ranch and appoint him as executor of this estate until my child reaches legal age. The room exploded. Vera was on her feet, chair falling backward. Thomas did not have a half-brother. This is fraud. June sat frozen, the name echoing in her mind. Colt Hendricks. Where had she heard that name? Wyatt stood slowly, face dark. This will is invalid. Thomas was clearly mentally incompetent when he signed it. No court will uphold this. Finch pulled out another document with shaking hands. The will was reviewed and notarized by 3 independent witnesses, including a psychiatrist who certified Thomas was of sound mind. It was updated just 3 months ago. According to this will, Finch continued, voice barely above a whisper, Colt Hendricks is the illegitimate son of Martin Callaway and Vera Hendricks, born in 1953, 2 years before Martin married into the Callaway family. Thomas discovered this truth 6 months ago and made contact with his half-brother. This will reflects his desire to make amends for the family's treatment of Colt. Vera's face had gone from pale to scarlet. That man has no right to the Callaway name, no right to this land. What man? June found her voice, finally. Who is Colt Hendricks? The door to the office opened before Finch could answer. The stranger from the funeral stood in the doorway, hat in his hands now. Face visible, strong jaw, storm-gray eyes that looked older than the rest of him. A scar ran from his left eyebrow to his temple, pale against tanned skin. He looked at each of them in turn before his gaze settled on June, Mrs. Callaway. His voice was low, rough-edged, like someone who did not speak often and did not waste words when he did. I am sorry for your loss. Thomas was a good man. June could not find words, could only stare at this man who had appeared at her husband's funeral uninvited and now stood in this office as if he had every right to be here. You are Colt Hendricks, she heard herself say. Yes, ma'am. You are Thomas's half-brother. Yes, ma'am. And now you own half of my ranch. The pause stretched. Outside, a car horn blared. Someone laughed. Normal life continuing while June's world tilted on its axis. Not your ranch, Colt said quietly. Your baby's ranch. I just hold it in trust. Wyatt stepped forward, face twisted with rage. You have some nerve coming here, showing up at the funeral like some ghost now claiming family ties. We do not know you. We do not want you here. Colt's eyes moved to Wyatt, and something cold flickered there. I did not ask what you want. Thomas asked me to do this, to protect what belongs to his child. So that is what I will do. Vera spoke then, voice shaking with fury or grief or both. Get out. You have no claim to this family. You are a bastard literally and figuratively. Martin Callaway made a mistake 32 years ago. That does not make you one of us. Colt looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried no anger, just tired acceptance. You are right. I am not one of you. But Thomas wanted me here anyway. And I gave him my word. He turned back to June. I will be at the ranch tomorrow to begin work, if you want to contest the will that is your right. But until a court says different, I am executor of this estate, which means I have legal authority to manage the property. Then he walked out, leaving silence in his wake. June drove home in a fog, Lucy's voice on the phone asking if she was okay, June saying yes automatically, not meaning it. The baby kicking restless and insistent, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. A half-brother. Thomas had a half-brother and never told her. Had known for 6 months and said nothing. Had changed his will to give this stranger half of everything without discussing it with his wife. What else had Thomas kept from her? The ranch looked even more desolate in the late afternoon sun. Fence posts leaning at drunken angles, barn roof sagging where winter snow had stressed the beams, cattle pens empty except for 2 old cows too sick to sell. The house itself was solid, built by Thomas's grandfather in 1920, but paint peeled from the siding and shutters hung crooked. This was what Thomas had died trying to save. This broken-down piece of earth that had been in the Calloway family for 3 generations and was now half owned by a stranger. June pulled into the driveway and sat for a moment, gathering strength. Then a movement caught her eye. Vera's car parked by the side of the house. She found Vera in the kitchen making coffee with the familiarity of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. This had been Vera's home once before Martin died, and she moved to town. She knew where everything was kept. "You should not be here," June said, not with kindness. Vera turned, eyes red but dry. "We need to talk. About Colt. I do not want to talk about him." "Too bad." Vera poured 2 cups of coffee without asking if June wanted any. "Sit down before you fall down. You look terrible." June sat because her legs were shaking. The baby shifted and kicked. Vera set a cup in front of her and sat across the small kitchen table. "It is true," Vera said without preamble. "I had an affair with Martin Calloway in 1952. I was 19, working as a maid for his family. He was 35, married to a woman who spent most of her time in Denver society circles and came to the ranch maybe twice a year." June wrapped her hands around the coffee cup but did not drink. "I got pregnant," Vera continued. "Martin offered to pay for an abortion. I refused. Had the baby, a boy. Gave him my last name because Martin would not allow him to be called Calloway. Martin paid child support, $500 a month until Colt turned 18. Then he cut all contact." Did Thomas know? June's voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Not until 6 months ago." Vera's jaw tightened. "Somehow he discovered the truth. I never told him, never told Wyatt. It was the past, buried." "How did Thomas find out?" Vera looked away. "I do not know, but he confronted me, demanded the truth. When I confirmed it, he was furious, said Colt had grown up poor while we had everything, said it was not fair, said he wanted to make amends, and you told him no." "Of course I told him no." Vera's composure cracked. "Colt Hendricks is nothing to us. A mistake from 30 years ago." But Thomas would not listen. He tracked Colt down, spent time with him, changed his will. June felt something cold settle in her chest. Does Wyatt know? Vera's silence was answer enough. "He knows," June said. "That is why Thomas wrote in the will to Wyatt, 'Nothing you know why.'" Vera stood abruptly, chair scraping. "Wyatt feels threatened. All his life he was the eldest son, but Thomas was always the favorite. Our father left the ranch to Thomas even though Wyatt was older. And now a bastard appears out of nowhere with claim to half of everything. Of course Wyatt is upset enough to contest the will." Vera's expression hardened, upset enough to protect what should stay in the family. "Colt Hendricks has no business here, and if you have any sense, you will help us fight this." June looked at her mother-in-law, really looked at her, saw the fear beneath the anger, the desperation beneath the pride. "Get out," June said quietly. "Excuse me," I said. "Get out of my house. You come here, drop this bomb about affairs and illegitimate children and family secrets. You tell me my husband kept huge things from me. And then you expect me to take your side against the man Thomas trusted enough to make executor of his estate?" Vera grabbed her purse. "You are making a mistake. Maybe. But it is my mistake to make. Please leave." After Vera left, June sat alone in the kitchen as shadows grew long. Her coffee had gone cold. The baby was quiet now, as if sensing her turmoil, and June realized she knew almost nothing about the man who now controlled half her life. Tomorrow, he had said. He would be here tomorrow. June was not sure if that terrified her or gave her hope. Colt Hendricks arrived at 7 in the morning, driving a pickup truck that had seen better decades. The truck bed held everything he owned apparently. 2 duffel bags, a toolbox, a saddle wrapped in canvas, a box of books, that was all. June watched from the kitchen window as he climbed out of the truck, surveyed the property with the careful attention of someone cataloging problems. His gaze moved from the sagging barn roof to the broken fence to the empty cattle pens. His expression never changed, not judgment, just assessment. She stepped out onto the porch before he could knock. The morning air already carried heat that would build to misery by afternoon. "Mr. Hendricks." He turned, touched the brim of his hat. "Mrs. Calloway, Thank you for allowing me on the property. I do not think I have much choice. The will is clear. You could contest it. Fight me in court. Could I win? He considered this. Probably not. Thomas was thorough. But you could make it expensive and time-consuming for both of us. Why would I want to do that? Some people do not like strangers being handed things they did not earn. June crossed her arms. Do you think you earned this? No, ma'am. But Thomas thought I deserved a chance to be part of something, to belong somewhere. I am not here to take anything from you or your baby. I am here because a man I respected asked me to protect what was his. Now I am asking permission to do that work. The baby kicked. June's lower back ached. She had not slept well in weeks. Everything felt too heavy, too complicated, too much. The bunkhouse, she said, pointing to a small building behind the barn. It is not much, but it is clean. Water works. Electricity works. You can stay there. Colt nodded. Appreciated. Meals are at 7, noon, and 6. If you're working late, there is a kitchen in the bunkhouse. You can fend for yourself. Yes, ma'am. And Mr. Hendricks. She waited until he looked at her. I do not know you. I do not know why Thomas trusted you. But he did. So I am going to try to do the same. But if you do anything at all that makes me think you are here to hurt me or my baby, I will make you regret it. Legal papers or not. Something flickered in his gray eyes. Not offense, more like respect. Fair enough, he said. He carried his things to the bunkhouse without another word. June went back inside and tried to figure out what she was supposed to do now. She had a ranch she could not run alone. A baby coming in 2 months. A brother-in-law who wanted her gone. A mother-in-law who hated her new business partner. And a stranger living in her bunkhouse who held half the cards. Thomas, she thought, staring at the wedding photo on the mantel. What were you thinking? But Thomas could not answer. And June was beginning to realize that the man she had married had kept more secrets than she had ever imagined. Colt worked like a machine. June watched him from the house as he moved through the property notebook in hand, writing things down, measuring fence posts, checking the barn foundation, examining the well pump. He did not waste motion, did not take breaks, just worked with steady, methodical efficiency. At noon, she brought sandwiches and lemonade out to where he was replacing rotted boards on the cattle pen fence. He had removed his jacket. His shirt was dark with sweat. Muscles moved beneath the fabric as he hammered. Lunch, she said. He looked up, surprised. You did not have to do that. I made too much anyway. She set the plate on a flat section of fence post. He washed his hands at the outdoor spigot and sat on an overturned bucket, ate without speaking. June leaned against the fence, watching him. You have done this before, she said. Ranch work. Yes, ma'am. Most of my life. Where? All over. Wyoming mostly. Some in Colorado. Wherever needed hands. You never stayed anywhere. He took a drink of lemonade. Never had reason to. No family. My mother died when I was 19. No siblings that I knew of until Thomas. Never married. That must have been lonely. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Sometimes lonely is safer than the alternative. Before June could ask what he meant, he stood. Thank you for lunch, Mrs. Calloway. I should get back to work. You can call me June. He hesitated, then nodded. June it is. She walked back to the house feeling like she had learned something important but could not quite name what it was. That evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and purple, June heard the sound of an engine, not Colt's truck. Something bigger. She walked to the front window and saw Wyatt's Mercedes pulling up the drive. Her stomach tightened. Wyatt climbed out wearing khakis and a polo shirt. Country club casual. He looked around the property with barely concealed disgust before walking to the porch. June met him at the door. We need to talk, he said without greeting. About what? About the situation. About that man living in my family's bunkhouse claiming rights he does not have. The will says different. The will is going to be challenged. My lawyers are already preparing the case. Thomas was not in his right mind. Grief over father's death. Stress from the failing ranch. He was manipulated by a con man who saw an opportunity. You have proof of that, I will. By the time we get to court. Wyatt stepped closer. June, be reasonable. That stranger knows nothing about you, about this family, about what Thomas would have wanted. I am his brother, His blood. I should be executor. Thomas chose Colt. There must have been a reason. The reason is that Thomas was always naive, always believed the best in people. It got him killed. June went very still. What did you say? Wyatt seemed to realize his mistake. I meant it led to bad decisions. The ranch failing, debts mounting. You said it got him killed. A figure of speech. Wyatt's voice was smooth, but his eyes were calculating. My point is that you cannot trust Hendricks. You need family right now. Let me help you. You want to help? June felt anger rising. Then explain why Thomas wrote in his will that you get nothing, and you know why. What do you know, Wyatt? What did you do? Wyatt's expression hardened. Be very careful, June. Grief makes people say things they regret. Is that a threat? It is a warning. From family. You are vulnerable right now. Pregnant. Alone. This ranch is drowning in debt. I am offering a lifeline. $200,000 cash for your share. Walk away. Start fresh somewhere without all this burden. This burden is my home, my baby's inheritance. Your baby's inheritance is a pile of debt and dirt. Take the money. It is more than this place is worth. Before June could respond, a voice came from the shadows of the porch. She is not interested. Colt stepped into the light. He must have approached while they were arguing. How long had he been listening? You... Wyatt spat. You have no business in family discussions. I have every business when it concerns this estate. I am executor, which means any sale requires my approval, and I do not approve. You will when my lawyers are done. Wyatt turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. I am filing for conservatorship of the estate, claiming June is not mentally competent to make decisions in her condition. Once I have conservatorship, you will have no authority here. He got in his car and left tires spitting gravel. June's legs suddenly would not hold her. She sat on the porch step. Colt sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. He cannot do that, Colt said. You are perfectly competent. He can try. And he has money for lawyers. I have nothing. You have me. June looked at him. Why? Why are you really here? What did Thomas promise you? Colt was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a letter. He handed it to June. She unfolded it. Recognized Thomas's handwriting immediately. Tears blurred her vision, but she read. The letter was addressed to Colt, dated 3 months before Thomas died. Brother, it began. The word made June's throat tight. I know you did not ask to be found, did not ask for family after all these years of being told you were not good enough to claim the name. But I needed to find you, needed to tell you that what our father did was wrong. The way Mother kept you secret was wrong, and I want to make it right. This ranch is failing. I am failing. The debts are crushing me. But I discovered something that might save everything. I cannot say more in writing. But if something happens to me, I need you to protect June and the baby, not because you owe me anything, but because they are innocent in all this. Wyatt is dangerous. I am starting to understand how dangerous. He wants something I cannot give him, and I am afraid of what he might do to get it. Please, brother, watch over them. Keep them safe. And if you can find out the truth about how I died, because I have a feeling it will not be natural causes. Your brother Thomas. June's hands shook. Thomas knew. He knew someone was going to kill him. Colt took the letter back gently. This is why I am here, not for land, not for money. Because Thomas asked me to protect you, and because he was the only person in 32 years who called me brother. Tears ran down June's face. She did not try to stop them. They sat together as darkness fell and crickets began their evening song. And June realized that whatever Thomas had discovered, whatever had gotten him killed, Colt Hendricks might be the only person standing between her and the same fate. The next morning, Colt told her about the locked box he had found in the barn loft. June had never seen it before. Metal about the size of a suitcase with a combination lock. Colt had found it hidden beneath old hay bales covered in dust. I should not have opened it without you, he said, but the combination was written on that letter Thomas sent me. What was inside? Documents, geological surveys, legal papers. He spread them on the kitchen table. June stared. The papers were dated from February through April of the current year. Detailed analysis of underground water systems, aquifer depth measurements, mineral content reports. And at the bottom, a letter from a California development company, Aquarius Holdings, LLC, offering $50 million for water extraction rights to the Callaway Ranch aquifer. $50 million, June whispered. Dollars. Colt nodded. There is one of the largest untapped aquifers in Montana beneath this property. Thomas commissioned these surveys himself, discovered it about 4 months before he died. Why did he never tell me, I do not know. But look at this. He showed her another document. Draft contracts someone had been negotiating to sell the water rights, and the signature at the bottom, though incomplete, looked like an attempt to forge Thomas's name. June's blood went cold. Wyatt. Colt showed her more papers. Evidence that Wyatt had been meeting with Aquarius Holdings behind Thomas's back, had been promised a finder's fee of $10 million if he could deliver the water rights, had been forging documents trying to make it look like Thomas agreed to the sale. There was a letter, unsent, in Thomas's handwriting. Duggett read, addressing the lawyer. If something happens to me, make sure June knows about the aquifer. Wyatt discovered it somehow. He wants to sell the rights behind my back. I caught him forging my signature on preliminary contracts. I confronted him. He denied everything. But I know my brother. He is desperate. His business is failing. He owes money to dangerous people. And he sees this water as his salvation. I am changing my will. Bringing in Colt as executor. Wyatt will not be able to sell without both Colt and June's signatures. This should protect the water until my child is old enough to decide what to do with it. If I die suddenly, Doug, investigate, because Wyatt is capable of... The letter ended there, unfinished. June felt the room spin. He knew. Thomas knew Wyatt was planning something, and he still died anyway. Colt finished quietly. They sat in silence, the enormity of it settling over them. $50 million in water rights. Wyatt desperate and deeply in debt. Thomas standing in the way. And then Thomas dead of mysterious pneumonia that came on fast and killed him in 6 weeks. We need to call the police, June said. And tell them what? That we have suspicions that Thomas wrote a letter he never sent. That his brother had motive. Colt shook his head. We need proof, real proof, medical proof. Thomas was cremated. There is no body to test. But there are medical records. Doctor's notes. Test results from when he was sick. If Wyatt poisoned Thomas, there might be evidence in the medical files. You think Wyatt poisoned him? I think Thomas died very conveniently for Wyatt, and I think we need to find out how. Before June could answer, they heard a sound from outside, breaking glass. Then the smell hit them. Smoke. The barn. They ran. The barn doors were open. Smoke poured from inside. Colt ran in without hesitation. June followed despite the heat, despite the pregnancy, despite her fear. Inside, flames were already climbing the far wall, and the metal box, the one that had held all of Thomas's documents, lay on the ground, pried open, empty. Colt grabbed a fire extinguisher, fought the flames. June helped grabbing buckets, filling them from the hose. By the time they got the fire under control, the barn's back wall was charred black, and the evidence that could have saved them was gone. All the surveys, all the letters, all the proof, stolen. Colt stood breathing hard, covered in soot. Then he saw something and went very still. On the barn door, someone had carved words into the wood with a knife. Fresh cuts, white wood showing through old paint. Sell or die like Thomas. June read the words and felt her knees buckle. Colt caught her, held her upright. But she could not stop shaking. Thomas had not died of pneumonia. Wyatt had killed him. And now Wyatt was threatening her. Threatening the baby. We need proof, Colt said again. His voice was hard. We need to find Thomas's doctor. Find out what really killed him. Before Wyatt decides you are too much trouble to keep alive. June looked at the words carved into the barn door. At the charred wall. At the empty box that had held their evidence. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow we find the doctor. And then she thought, but did not say, we find out if my husband's death was murder. And if the father of my child was killed by his own brother for water and money and greed. The baby kicked, strong and insistent, a reminder that she was not fighting just for herself anymore. She was fighting for her child's future, for the truth. for justice Thomas would never see. And she was not alone. She had Colt. This stranger who was not a stranger anymore. This half-brother who Thomas had trusted. This man who had promised a dying friend to protect what was his. June looked at Colt, really looked at him, saw the determination in his storm-gray eyes, the set of his jaw, the way he stood between her and the barn door with its terrible message. "You think we can prove it?" she asked. "I think we have to try. And if we cannot, then we protect you and the baby anyway, whatever it takes." June placed her hand on her belly, felt the life growing there. Thomas's child. Her child. A child who deserved to grow up knowing the truth about their father. "Okay," she said. "We find the proof. We expose Wyatt. We save the water and the ranch and everything Thomas died trying to protect." Colt nodded. "Starting tomorrow." But as they walked back to the house in the darkness, June could not shake the feeling that tomorrow might already be too late. That Wyatt was moving faster than they were. That the man who had killed his own brother for money would not hesitate to kill a pregnant woman and a half-brother bastard who stood in his way. She looked back at the barn one last time, at those words carved in hatred and threat. Sell or die like Thomas. Not a warning, a promise. And somewhere out there in the Montana night, Wyatt Calloway was planning his next move. The clinic sat at the end of Main Street, a squat brick building that had served Crow Valley for 30 years. Dr. Malcolm Spencer's name was painted on the window in fading gold letters. Below it someone had taped a handwritten sign. "Office hours by appointment only." June and Colt arrived at 8 in the morning. The parking lot was empty except for an older sedan with a dented bumper and a medical caduceus sticker peeling off the rear window. Spencer's car, June assumed. She had been here dozens of times, bringing Thomas when he first got sick, sitting in the waiting room while Spencer ran tests that never showed anything conclusive, listening to the doctor's reassurances that turned out to be lies. Her hand moved to her belly. 8 months now. The baby was getting crowded in there, shifting and kicking at odd hours. She had not slept well since the barn fire. Every sound outside made her jump. Every car passing on the road made her wonder if it was Wyatt coming back to finish what he started. "You do not have to do this," Colt said. "I can talk to him alone." "No." June's voice was firm. "Thomas was my husband. If Spencer knows something about how he died, I need to hear it." They walked to the door together. Locked. Colt knocked. Waited. Knocked again, harder. A curtain twitched in the window above. A face appeared. Pale, unshaven eyes red. The face disappeared. Footsteps inside. Then the door opened, a crack, chain still on. Dr. Spencer looked like he had aged a decade since June last saw him. His hair, once neatly combed, stuck up in patches. His shirt was wrinkled, stained with what might have been coffee. And his hands, those steady surgeon's hands that had delivered half the babies in Crow Valley, shook visibly as they gripped the doorframe. "We are closed," he said, voice hoarse. "Dr. Spencer, it is June Calloway. I need to talk to you about Thomas." Something flickered in Spencer's bloodshot eyes. "Fear, guilt, or both. I have nothing to say. I treated your husband to the best of my ability. The pneumonia was aggressive. Sometimes these things happen. That is not what the evidence suggests." Spencer's grip tightened on the door. "What evidence?" Colt stepped forward. "The kind that shows Thomas did not die of pneumonia, the kind that makes his death look suspicious, the kind that makes me wonder why a healthy 34-year-old man with no history of respiratory problems suddenly developed lung failure that resisted every treatment." "Who are you, Colt Hendricks? Thomas's half-brother, executor of his estate, and the person who is going to find out what really killed him." Spencer tried to close the door. Colt's boot stopped it. June saw the doctor's face crumble. Not anger, just exhaustion, and fear so deep it looked like drowning. "Please," Spencer whispered. "Just leave me alone." "A man is dead," Colt said. "His widow deserves to know why. His child deserves to know the truth. The truth." Spencer laughed. A broken sound with no humor in it. "The truth will not bring him back, but it might keep his wife and baby safe." Spencer's eyes moved to June's belly. Something in his expression shifted. He released the chain, stepped back, let them in. The waiting room was dark, shades drawn, magazines on the table from 6 months ago, a faint smell of whiskey in the air. Spencer led them past the examination rooms, all empty, to his private office in the back. The office was worse. Papers scattered across the desk, medical journals stacked haphazardly, and on the credenza, 3 empty whiskey bottles and 1 half full. Spencer sat heavily in his chair, did not offer them seats, just stared at his shaking hands like they belonged to someone else. Thomas's death certificate says pneumonia complications, June said. Is that what killed him? Spencer said, nothing. Dr. Spencer, I am asking you directly, did my husband die of pneumonia? The silence stretched. A clock ticked on the wall. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. Finally, Spencer looked up. His eyes were wet. I have been a doctor for 35 years, never lost my license, never had a malpractice suit, never compromised my oath, until Thomas Spencer agreed. What happened? Colt leaned against the door, making it clear Spencer was not leaving without answering. Spencer reached for the whiskey bottle, poured 2 fingers into a coffee cup, drank it in 1 swallow. Then he started talking. Thomas came to me in April with what looked like a bad cold. Fever, cough, fatigue. I prescribed antibiotics, standard treatment. He should have improved in a few days, but he did not. No, he got worse. The cough got deeper. Breathing became labored. I ran chest x-rays, saw fluid in the lungs, admitted him to hospital, started IV antibiotics, stronger ones, and he kept deteriorating. It was like watching someone drown from the inside. Progressive respiratory failure, none of the treatments worked. I brought in a pulmonologist from Billings. He could not explain it either. We tried everything, ventilator support, experimental drugs, nothing helped. Spencer poured another drink. His hands shook so badly he spilled some. In 6 weeks, Thomas went from healthy rancher to dying man, and I could not save him, could not even figure out what was killing him. You are saying you did not know what caused his symptoms. June's voice was ice. Spencer would not meet her eyes. I am saying the symptoms did not match standard pneumonia. They matched something else, something I should have tested for. What paraquat poisoning? The word hung in the air like a curse. June had heard of paraquat. Every rancher had. It was an herbicide, powerful toxic banned in some countries because of how deadly it was. You think Thomas was poisoned with paraquat? Colt's voice was carefully neutral. I do not think. I know. How do you know? Because Wyatt Calloway told me what he had done. June's world tilted. She sat down hard in a chair. The baby kicked frantically, responding to her racing heart. Explain, Colt said. All of it. Spencer drained his cup, poured another. This time he did not drink it, just held it like a lifeline. 2 months before Thomas got sick, Wyatt came to see me, said he had a business proposition. He knew I was struggling financially. My daughters, they are both in medical school. Tuition is crushing me. My practice is not what it used to be. Young people go to Billings now for health care. I was drowning in debt. Wyatt offered you money, $50,000. Spencer's voice broke. Enough to cover one daughter's tuition for a year. All I had to do was, and this is what he said, look the other way if his brother got sick. June felt vomit rise in her throat. She swallowed it down. I did not understand what he meant. I thought maybe Wyatt was planning some kind of insurance fraud, maybe faking illness to get disability payments or something. I knew it was wrong, but I told myself it was not really hurting anyone, so you took the money. God help me, I took the money. And when Thomas got sick, Spencer's composure shattered. He put his face in his hands. When Thomas came in with those symptoms, I knew immediately it was not normal pneumonia. The pattern was wrong. The progression was wrong. And then I remembered what Wyatt had said. Look the other way. You knew Wyatt had poisoned him. Not at first, but I suspected. So I called Wyatt, asked him what he had done, and he told me. Spencer looked up. Tears ran down his face. He told me he had been contaminating Thomas's insulin with microdoses of paraquat for 3 months. Thomas was type 1 diabetic, took insulin injections twice daily. Wyatt had access to his medical supplies, would visit the ranch, replace clean vials with contaminated ones. Every injection delivered more poison directly into Thomas's bloodstream. June could not breathe, could not think. The man she had loved, the father of her child, had been murdered slowly over months, poisoned by his own brother. And this doctor, this man who had sworn an oath to heal, had known and done nothing. Paraquat causes progressive lung damage, Spencer continued, voice monotone now, like reciting a textbook. It destroys lung tissue at the cellular level. Symptoms mimic severe pneumonia or acute respiratory distress syndrome. But it is not infection. It is chemical destruction. Antibiotics do nothing. Ventilators do nothing. The patient slowly suffocates as their lungs turn to scar tissue. "Why did you not test for it?" Colt's voice was deadly quiet. "Because standard toxicology screens do not include paraquat unless specifically requested, and I did not request it, because Wyatt had paid me to look the other way." "You let him die," Spencer nodded. "I let him die. I could have saved him. Chelation therapy in the early stages, aggressive lung lavage, hyperbaric oxygen. If I had caught it in the first 2 weeks, Thomas might have survived. But by the time I would have had to admit what I suspected, by the time I would have had to test for paraquat and reveal Wyatt's crime and my own complicity, it was too late. The damage was too extensive. So you wrote pneumonia on the death certificate and took your blood money and let a murderer walk free." Spencer flinched like he had been struck. "Yes," June stood. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. "You killed my husband as surely as Wyatt did. You took money to let him die." "Mrs. Calloway, I am sorry." Spencer reached for her. She stepped back. "Do not touch me. Do not ever come near me or my child. You are a monster. I know." "We need you to testify," Colt said. "We need you to tell the police everything you just told us." Spencer laughed, that broken sound again. "And then would I lose my license, go to prison, and Wyatt's expensive lawyers argue I am lying to save myself. My testimony is worthless. I am a drunk with a financial motive to make false accusations. Then we need physical evidence. Thomas's medical records, lab results, anything that would show paraquat in his system." Spencer shook his head. "I destroyed the original records, everything that might have shown toxins," Wyatt insisted. "But there might be one thing. The hospital keeps frozen blood samples from all admitted patients, for potential retesting if questions arise. If I order a retroactive paraquat screening on Thomas's samples, and if they still exist, the results would be definitive proof. How long would that take? 3 days, maybe 4. Do it." Spencer looked at them both. "If I do this, if I order those tests, Wyatt will eventually find out. Hospital records are not secret. When he learns we are testing for paraquat, he will know we are onto him." "Then he might run," Colt said, "or he might decide to eliminate the threats before we can prove anything." Spencer's gaze moved to June's belly, meaning her, and you, and anyone else who stands in his way, which is why we need the proof before he knows we are looking. "Can you order the tests under a false pretense?" Spencer considered. "I could claim it as a routine quality control audit. Medical review of unusual deaths. Wyatt would not necessarily connect it to you. Then do it. Today." Spencer nodded slowly, then reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a small black device, a digital recorder. "I have been recording every conversation I have had for the last month, including the one we just had." He pressed a button. Their voices played back tinny but clear. "If something happens to me, this goes to the police automatically. I set it up with my lawyer." "Why?" "Because I am terrified." Spencer's voice was barely a whisper. "Because I know what Wyatt is capable of. Because I helped him kill once, and I am afraid he will kill again to keep his secret safe." He looked at June. "I cannot undo what I did, cannot bring Thomas back, but I can try to stop Wyatt from hurting anyone else. So, yes, I will order the tests. I will testify if it comes to that. And if Wyatt Calloway kills me for it, at least I will die doing the right thing finally." June wanted to feel sympathy, wanted to forgive. But all she felt was cold rage at this weak, broken man who had let greed overcome his oath. "Just get us the proof," she said. "That is all I want from you." They left Spencer sitting in his dark office staring at his shaking hands. Outside, the morning sun was bright and merciless. June leaned against Colt's truck and breathed deeply, trying to steady herself. "Are you all right?" Colt asked. "No." June wiped her eyes. "I am not all right. I just found out my husband was murdered over months while his doctor watched it happen. I am 8 months pregnant. Someone carved death threats into my barn. And the only evidence we have is the confession of a drunk who took blood money. So, no, Colt, I am very far from all right." Colt said nothing, just waited while she pulled herself together. "We need more than Spencer," June said finally. "We need something Wyatt cannot explain away, something solid. We will get it. The blood tests will prove Thomas was poisoned. That is physical evidence. And if the samples are degraded, if they did not store them properly, if Wyatt finds out and destroys them first, then we find another way." "What other way?" Colt looked at her, really looked at her with those storm-gray eyes. "Thomas wrote that letter saying he caught Wyatt forging his signature. That means there might be more forged documents, more evidence of Wyatt's fraud. If we can find those, prove Wyatt was trying to steal the water rights that establishes motive for murder. The barn fire destroyed all of Thomas's documents, all the documents in the barn, but Thomas was careful. Paranoid even according to your mother-in-law. He might have hidden copies somewhere else, where I do not know. But I think we need to talk to Vera." June's stomach clenched. "She will never help us against Wyatt. Maybe not. But she might tell us things she does not realize are important." "It is worth a try," June admitted, "though I am not sure I can be in the same room with her without screaming." "Then I will do the talking." They drove to Vera's house in town, a neat Victorian with a wraparound porch and flower beds that were meticulously maintained. The door was painted dark green, lace curtains in the windows, everything proper and respectable. Vera answered on the third knock. She wore a lavender dress and pearls, hair perfect, makeup flawless, like she was about to host a tea party instead of facing the people trying to prove her son was a murderer. "What do you want?" Her voice could have frozen water. "To talk," Colt said, "about Thomas and Wyatt and what really happened. I have nothing to say to you." Vera started to close the door. June spoke up. "Did you know Wyatt killed Thomas?" Vera went very still. "That is a slanderous accusation. It is the truth. We have proof. You have nothing. We have a doctor's confession. We have evidence of forgery. We have Thomas's letter saying he feared for his life. And we are getting blood tests that will prove he was poisoned with paraquat over several months." Vera's face went pale. "You are lying. Let us in," June said. "Let us show you what we have. And then you can decide if you still want to protect your son." For a long moment, Vera did not move. Then she stepped aside. They sat in her living room. Antique furniture, family photos on the mantel. June saw Thomas as a boy. Thomas and Wyatt together, maybe 8 and 10 years old, arms around each other's shoulders. Brothers who became enemies. One dead one, a killer. Colt laid out everything they had learned. The aquifer, the $50 million deal, Wyatt's forged documents, his debts, Spencer's confession about the paraquat poisoning, Thomas's letter warning about Wyatt. Vera listened without interrupting. Her face remained impassive, but her hands folded in her lap gripped each other so tightly the knuckles went white. When Colt finished, silence filled the room. Then Vera spoke. Her voice was steady, but something underneath it was breaking. "I knew Wyatt was struggling financially. He came to me 6 months ago asking for money, a loan he called it, $2 million. June inhaled sharply. $2 million. I did not have that kind of money. I offered him $20,000. Everything I had in savings. He refused, said it was not enough, that his investors were threatening him, that if he did not pay them back soon, they would, and these were his words, make an example of him." "So Wyatt was desperate," Colt said. "Desperate enough to see murder as his only option?" Vera agreed. She looked at them both. "But I swear to you, I did not know he would hurt Thomas. Brothers fight. They argue over money and land and family legacy. But I never imagined Wyatt would actually kill him. Did you know about the aquifer not until after Thomas died? Wyatt came to me the day of the funeral, told me about the water, about the $50 million deal, said Thomas had been standing in the way of the family's salvation, said with Thomas gone we could sell the water rights, split the money, save everyone. And you said," I said no. Vera's voice hardened. Because even if Thomas's death was natural, even if it was just unfortunate timing, selling that water felt like profiting from my son's grave. I told Wyatt to let it go, but he would not. He became obsessed, started talking about how June could not manage the ranch alone, how she would eventually have to sell, how he could get conservatorship of the estate if he proved she was mentally unstable from grief. June felt ice in her veins. He told you his plan to have me declared incompetent. He said it was for your own good, for the baby's good, that the stress of running a failing ranch while pregnant would be too much, that putting the property under professional management was the responsible thing to do. Professional management meaning him. Meaning him. Vera stood, walked to the window, looked out at her perfect flower beds. I am a mother to 2 sons. One I raised, one I gave away, and now the one I raised is a murderer, while the one I abandoned is trying to protect the innocent. She turned back. Tears ran down her perfect makeup. Thomas left copies of documents with me, she said, a month before he died. He said if anything happened to him, I should give them to June. I hid them. I told myself it was paranoia, that Thomas was stressed and imagining threats. But he was right, about all of it. Where are the documents? In my safety deposit box at the bank. Vera wiped her eyes. Geological surveys, contracts with Aquarius Holdings, and samples of Wyatt's attempts to forge Thomas's signature on water rights agreements. I will get them. I will give them to the police. I will testify against my own son if that is what it takes to protect my grandchild. Why now? June asked. Why not before? Because before I could tell myself it was all circumstantial, that there were other explanations. But hearing about the paraquat, about Spencer's confession, about the systematic poisoning over months, there is no other explanation. Wyatt murdered Thomas in cold blood for money, and I will not let him murder you too. Vera sat down again, suddenly looked every one of her 52 years. I chose the wrong son, she said quietly. I spent my life protecting Wyatt, excusing his selfishness, his greed, his entitlement. And I abandoned Colt because he was inconvenient, evidence of my mistake. But Colt turned out to be the better man, and Wyatt turned out to be a killer. It is not too late to do the right thing, Colt said. Thomas would want you to protect June and the baby. Thomas would want me to destroy Wyatt. Vera's voice was steel. And that is exactly what I am going to do. They left Vera's house with a plan. She would get the documents from the bank the next morning. Spencer would rush the blood tests. They would take everything to the county sheriff within 38 hours. Enough evidence to arrest Wyatt Calloway for first-degree murder. June should have felt relief, should have felt hope. But all she felt was dread growing in her chest like a tumor. Back at the ranch, Colt made dinner while June rested. Her back ached. The baby was heavy and restless. She sat on the porch and watched the sun set over land that had seen 3 generations of Calloways. Land that was now half hers, half Colt's, and might belong to her child someday if they could keep it safe. Colt brought out 2 plates, beans and cornbread. Simple food, but he had added spices that made it better than anything June had made in weeks. You are a good cook, she said. Years of cooking for myself in bunkhouses. You learn or you starve. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that had developed between them over the past 2 weeks. Not awkward, just the quiet of 2 people who did not need to fill every moment with words. Finally June spoke. Tell me about your mother. Colt set down his fork, looked out at the darkening sky. What do you want to know? What was she like? How did she raise you after Martin abandoned you both? Colt was quiet for so long, June thought he would not answer. Then he started talking. Low voice, measured. Like each word cost something. Her name was Vera Hendricks, same as Thomas's mother. That is how she met Martin, both named Vera. He thought it was fate or something romantic, but it was not romantic, it was an affair. She was 19. He was 35 and married. He promised her nothing except $500 a month until I turned 18. That must have been hard. Growing up knowing your father did not want you. Colt laughed. No humor in it. Hard does not cover it. We lived in a trailer park outside Billings. Mom worked 3 jobs. Cleaning houses during the day, waitressing evenings, laundry service overnight. I barely saw her. But every month that check arrived, $500. Blood money, she called it. Guilt payment. Did she ever try to get more from him once? When I was 8. I asked about my father, who he was, where he was. Mom broke down and told me everything, how he was a rich rancher, how he had another family, how he wanted nothing to do with us. I was angry. I wanted to meet him, make him acknowledge me. So Mom drove me to the Calloway Ranch. We parked outside the gate. I saw this beautiful house, saw horses and cattle and land that went on forever, saw 2 boys playing in the yard, Thomas and Wyatt, my brothers, and I wanted that life so badly it hurt. Did you talk to them? Mom would not let me. Said Martin had made it clear we were to stay away. If we showed up, the money would stop, and we needed that money to survive. So you watched your brothers from outside the gate. We sat there for an hour. I watched them play, watched their mother call them in for dinner, watched lights come on in that big house, and then we drove back to our trailer, and Mom cried herself to sleep. Colt's voice had gone flat, emotionless. But June could hear the pain underneath. When you turned 18, the money stopped. On my birthday. No warning, no explanation, just stopped. And Mom got sick 3 months later. Cancer. Stage 4 by the time we caught it. I am sorry. I wrote to Martin, begged him for help with medical bills. He sent 1 letter back. Our arrangement ended at age 18. Do not contact me again. That was it. Mom died 6 months later. I was 19, alone, penniless, and I swore I would never need anything from the Calloway family ever again. But then Thomas found you. Colt nodded. Last December, showed up at a ranch in Wyoming where I was working. Said he had discovered old letters his mother kept. Letters from my mother to Martin, letters proving I existed. He tracked me down through employment records and came to find me. What did you say when you met him? I told him to fuck off. June almost smiled. I cannot imagine Thomas took that well. He did not leave. Stayed 3 days. Followed me around while I worked. Talked about the ranch. About discovering he had a half-brother. About how wrong it all was. How our father had failed both of us in different ways. Did you forgive him? I told him he was not responsible for what Martin did, but I wanted nothing from the Calloway family. Then why did you agree to be executor? Because on the 3rd day, Thomas asked me one question. He said, what would make this right? And I said nothing. You cannot undo the past. And he said, you are right, but maybe we can build a better future for my kid, for you, for all of us. That was when he told you about the will. He said he wanted to give me what I should have had all along, a stake in the family legacy, a place to belong. He said his child would need protection because Wyatt was dangerous. And he asked if I would watch over his family if anything happened to him. You said yes. I said yes. Because for the first time in my life, someone called me brother and meant it. June felt tears on her face. She did not try to stop them. Colt looked at her. Really looked at her in the fading light. I had a family for 6 months, he said. Real family. And then Thomas died. And I thought I was alone again, but I am not, because I have you and the baby, and I am going to protect you both, whatever it takes. June reached across the space between them, took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, rough and calloused and strong. Thank you, she whispered. They sat like that as full dark came. 2 people who had lost everything holding on to each other like lifelines. And in that moment June realized she was not falling in love with Colt Hendricks. She was already there. Had been for days, maybe. This quiet, broken man who had every reason to hate the Calloway family, but chose to protect them instead. This man who kept his promises even when keeping them put his life at risk. But she could not say it. Not yet. Not while Thomas's murder was unsolved and their lives were in danger and everything hung in the balance. So she just held his hand and let the silence speak what words could not. 3 in the morning. June woke to pounding on the door. She struggled out of bed, 8 months pregnant and clumsy, reaching for her robe. The pounding continued. Urgent, desperate. Mrs. Calloway, please, I need help. She recognized the voice. Dr. Spencer. Colt was already at the door when June made it downstairs. He had pulled on jeans but no shirt, a gun in his hand. June had not known he owned a gun. He opened the door carefully. Spencer nearly fell through it. The doctor was drunk, completely falling down drunk. He reeked of whiskey. His shirt was half unbuttoned, no shoes. He must have driven here barefoot. I cannot, Spencer slurred. I cannot live with this anymore. The guilt, the knowing. Thomas's face when he died. His eyes. He knew. He knew I was letting him die, and he looked at me like I was already damned. Dr. Spencer, you need to sit down. June tried to guide him to a chair. No? Spencer pulled away, stumbled, caught himself on the wall. You need to know. All of it. Everything Wyatt did, everything I did. I cannot carry it alone anymore. We know about the paraquat, Colt said. You already told us. Not just that. Spencer's eyes were wild. The insulin, the way Wyatt contaminated it. He showed me the vials. Bragged about how clever he was. Microdoses over months. Slow enough that Thomas would not suspect poison. Just think he was getting sick naturally. June felt the room spin. Sat down hard. He used a syringe to inject paraquat into the insulin vials, Spencer continued. Wore gloves, no fingerprints. Replaced the vials every week so Thomas would not notice discoloration. And Thomas, trusting his brother, never suspected. Just kept injecting poison twice a day, thinking it was keeping him alive. How many times did Wyatt do this? Colt's voice was ice. Months. Spencer's face crumpled. 3 months of systematic poisoning. By the time Thomas showed symptoms, the cumulative damage was too much. Even if I had figured it out, then even if I had told the truth, Thomas was already dying. The paraquat had destroyed too much lung tissue. You could have tried. I did not try because Wyatt paid me not to try. Spencer screamed it. $50,000 to be a coward. To let a good man suffocate slowly while I prescribed treatments I knew would not work. I am damned. Do you understand I am going to hell for what I did? Then do the right thing now, June said. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out. Testify. Tell the police everything. Help us put Wyatt in prison where he belongs. Spencer looked at her. Tears and snot ran down his face. I already did. What I went to the police tonight, Sheriff Hayes, gave him a full confession. Everything. The money, the paraquat, Wyatt's plan. I told him to arrest me, to arrest Wyatt, to make it stop. The sheriff believed you. He took my statement, said he would investigate. But June, his eyes. He looked at me like I was something that crawled out of a sewer. And he was right. Spencer sank to the floor, sat there, sobbing. What about the blood tests? Colt asked. Did you order them this morning? Results should be ready tomorrow afternoon. Proof that Thomas was poisoned. Proof that Wyatt killed him. June wanted to feel something. Triumph, maybe. Relief that they had evidence finally. But all she felt was sick. This broken drunk on her floor had let her husband die, and now wanted absolution she could not give. Colt helped Spencer to his feet. You need to go home. Sober up. Be ready to testify when they arrest Wyatt. They will not arrest him yet, Spencer said. Not on my word alone. They need the blood tests, need physical evidence. Then we wait for the tests. Waiting might be too late. Spencer grabbed Colt's arm. Wyatt knows something is wrong. He called me tonight. Asked if anyone had been asking questions about Thomas's death. I lied, said no, but he did not believe me. I could hear it in his voice. What did he say? He said people who cause problems tend to have accidents. And then he hung up. June's blood went cold. He threatened you. He threatened all of us. Spencer left shortly after. Colt watched until the car disappeared down the road. He should not be driving drunk, June said. He should not be doing a lot of things. But here we are. Colt locked the door, checked the windows, moved through the house like he was securing a perimeter. You think Wyatt will come tonight? June asked. I think Wyatt is desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things. June looked out at the darkness. Somewhere out there, her brother-in-law was planning his next move. And she was trapped in this house 8 months pregnant with only Colt standing between her and a killer. Try to get some sleep, Colt said. I will keep watch. You cannot stay up all night. I have done it before. I will be fine. But June could not sleep. She lay in bed listening to Colt moving through the house, footsteps on the stairs, a door opening and closing, the creak of a floorboard, protective sounds, safe sounds. She put her hand on her belly, felt the baby move. This child would grow up without a father, would carry the burden of knowing their dad was murdered by their uncle, would inherit a ranch built on blood and secrets and broken families. But they would also inherit Colt's protection, and Vera's love, complicated as it was, and June's determination that truth would win over lies. She must have dozed because she woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Downstairs, Colt sat at the kitchen table. He had not slept. She could see it in the shadows under his eyes, but he was alert, gun on the table beside his coffee cup. Any trouble? None, but I found this. He pushed a newspaper across the table. The local weekly, front page story. Callaway Ranch controversy. Will contest filed. June read quickly. Wyatt had officially contested Thomas's will, claimed Thomas was mentally incompetent when he signed it, had affidavits from people saying Thomas had been behaving strangely before his death. Paranoid. Delusional. He is building his defense, Colt said, making Thomas look crazy. So when we accuse Wyatt of murder, he can say Thomas's paranoia is what led to these false accusations. It will not work. We have Spencer's confession. We will have blood tests. We have the confession of a drunk who took money from the accused. Any lawyer will tear that apart. And blood tests can be challenged. Chain of custody issues. Sample degradation. Contamination. So what do? We wait for Vera to get those documents from the bank. Between Spencer's testimony, the blood tests, and Thomas's evidence of forgery, we build a case Wyatt cannot escape. The phone rang. June answered. It was Vera, voice tight. June, do not come to the bank today. Why? What happened? Wyatt was here when it opened. He emptied my safety deposit box, took everything. June's stomach dropped. The documents, Thomas's copies, all gone. Vera's voice shook. He must have suspected I would turn against him. He got a court order claiming I was not mentally competent, used his lawyer connections, showed up with police escort and took everything from my box. Can you get them back? They are gone, June. Destroyed probably. All the evidence Thomas saved, all the proof. Wyatt has it now, and we have nothing. June hung up, looked at Colt. He took the documents. Everything is gone. Not everything. We still have Spencer and the blood tests. The phone rang again. June answered without thinking. Hello, June. Wyatt's voice. Smooth as oil. I hear you have been making accusations about me. Quite serious accusations. You murdered your brother. Prove it. Oh, wait, you cannot. Because I destroyed all your evidence. Spencer's confession will not hold up in court. And I have already ensured the blood samples will never see a laboratory. My people at the hospital are destroying them as we speak. By the time Spencer orders his precious tests, there will be nothing left to test. Administrative error. Very tragic, is it not? June could not breathe. So here is what is going to happen, Wyatt continued. You are going to sign over your share of the ranch to me. You are going to withdraw any objections to me selling the water rights. And you are going to tell that bastard half-brother to disappear before he has an unfortunate accident. And if I refuse, then you will have an unfortunate accident too. Stress-induced miscarriage, perhaps. Pregnant women fall downstairs all the time. Or maybe a car crash. Icy roads are so dangerous. You would kill your own nephew or niece. I would do whatever is necessary to protect what is mine. You have until 5 p.m. today to sign the papers. My lawyer will be at your house at 4. Sign or suffer the consequences. He hung up. June stood holding the dead phone. Everything they had worked for. Everything Spencer had confessed. All of it meaningless because Wyatt had destroyed the evidence and bought off the right people. The baby kicked, hard, painful. June gasped and put her hand on her belly. Then the pain came. Not baby movement, real pain, sharp and burning low in her abdomen. June Colt was beside her instantly. What is wrong? I do not know. It hurts. The baby. Another contraction. Too early. She was only 8 months. The baby was not due for 4 more weeks. Hospital. Colt helped her to the truck. Now. But as they rushed outside, 3 vehicles pulled into the driveway. Sheriff Hayes's patrol car, an ambulance, and Vera's sedan. The sheriff stepped out. Mrs. Callaway, Mr. Hendricks, we need to talk. Not now, Colt said. June is in labor. We need to get to the hospital. That is why I brought the ambulance. Hayes gestured to the paramedics. "But I also need to inform you both that I am investigating allegations you made threats against Dr. Spencer, coerced a false confession, attempted extortion of Wyatt Calloway." "That is insane," June gasped through the pain. "Wyatt is lying." Vera stepped forward. Her face was cold, empty. "Sheriff, I can confirm that June and Colt have been harassing my son, making wild accusations. They threatened to destroy our family unless Wyatt paid them money." What? June stared at her. "You said you would testify against him. You said you would help us." "I said what you wanted to hear." Vera's voice was like a stranger's. "But Wyatt is my son, my blood, and I will not let you destroy him with lies." "You chose him," June whispered, "even knowing he is a murderer. You chose him. I chose family, real family, not some pregnant gold digger and a bastard trying to steal what is not theirs." Another contraction hit. June cried out. The paramedics moved forward with a stretcher. "We will sort this out at the hospital," Hayes said. "But Mr. Hendricks, I need you to come to the station for questioning after we get Mrs. Calloway medical attention. I am not leaving her." It was not a request. The ambulance doors closed with June inside. Through the window, she saw Colt being held back by deputies, saw Vera standing cold and righteous, saw their plan falling apart. The baby was coming, 4 weeks early, and Wyatt had won at the hospital chaos. June's blood pressure was dangerously high, preeclampsia brought on by stress. The baby was in distress, heart rate dropping. They rushed her to a delivery room. A nurse tried to keep Colt out. "Family only." "He is family," June screamed. "He is the baby's legal guardian, executor of the estate. He has to be here. Hospital policy for high-risk births." June grabbed the nurse's arm. "Listen to me. My husband was murdered. His brother is trying to kill me. The one person I trust in this world is being kept outside while I give birth to a baby who might not survive because of stress caused by a killer who is walking free. Now get Colt Hendricks in this room, or I will sue this hospital for everything it has." The nurse looked at the doctor. The doctor nodded. Colt came in moments later. His face was pale. He went straight to June's side. "The baby is breech," the doctor said. "Heart rate unstable. Your blood pressure is critical. We need to do an emergency C-section now. Will the baby be okay? I do not know. But if we do not get the baby out in the next few minutes, you could both die." They prepped for surgery. Colt held June's hand. His grip was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. "I am scared," she whispered. "I am here, not going anywhere. If something happens to me, protect the baby. Do not let Wyatt get custody. Nothing is going to happen. Promise me, I promise." The anesthesiologist counted down. June's vision blurred. She felt the pressure of the incision, but no pain. Heard the doctor's clipped commands. Felt Colt's hand holding hers like a lifeline. Then a sound, weak at first, then stronger. A baby crying. "It is a boy," the doctor said, small but breathing on his own. Through the haze of medication, June saw them hold up her son, Thomas's son, tiny and red and perfect. They cleaned him quickly, wrapped him in a blanket, brought him to her face so she could see. "Hi, baby," June whispered. "I am your mama, and I am going to keep you safe. I promise." The baby's eyes opened, dark blue. They would probably change color, but right now they looked like Thomas's eyes, like he was looking at her through their child. "Thomas Colt Calloway," she said, "after both his fathers, the one who gave him life and the one who will protect it." Colt's face showed everything he could not say. Grief and joy and fear and determination all mixed together. They took the baby to the NICU, premature but stable. June was moved to recovery, and outside her hospital room door a sheriff's deputy stood guard. "You are not under arrest," Sheriff Hayes had explained, "but you are a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. The deputy is for your protection and to ensure you do not leave." Protection from what June had asked. From making the situation worse, Hayes had said. But June knew the truth. Wyatt had gotten to the sheriff, had convinced him that June and Colt were the real threats, and now she was trapped in a hospital room, her newborn son in the NICU, while Wyatt prepared his final move. Colt was allowed to visit for 30 minutes. He brought news she did not want to hear. "Spencer is dead." June's heart stopped. What found him this morning? Apparent suicide? Hanged himself in his office. It was not suicide. No, it was not. But that is what the death certificate will say. And with Spencer dead, his confession is hearsay. Cannot be used in court. What about the blood tests? Hospital says there was a mix-up. Thomas's samples were destroyed this morning. Routine disposal protocol, they claim. Nothing to test. June closed her eyes. Everything was gone. Every piece of evidence. Every witness. Wyatt had systematically eliminated anything that could prove his guilt. Vera is telling everyone you are mentally unstable, Colt continued. That grief made you paranoid. That you invented a murder conspiracy to avoid facing Thomas's natural death. And people believe her. Some do. Others are not sure. But without proof, we have nothing. There has to be something. Some way to prove what Wyatt did. If there is, I have not found it. June looked at this man who had given up everything to protect her, who had kept promises to a brother he barely knew, who was fighting a losing battle against a killer with money and connections and the law on his side. I am sorry, she said. Sorry I dragged you into this. Sorry Thomas asked you to do the impossible. Do not be sorry. Colt leaned close. His voice dropped. I am not giving up. I am going to find proof. I am going to expose Wyatt. And I am going to make sure you and Thomas Colt Jr. are safe. How, I do not know yet. But I made a promise. And I keep my promises. Visiting hours ended. Colt was escorted out. June was left alone with her thoughts and fears and the terrible knowledge that Wyatt Calloway had won. Or had he? June pressed the call button. When the nurse came, she asked for paper and a pen. The nurse looked uncertain. Mrs. Calloway, you need to rest. I need to write something down. Please. The nurse brought paper. June wrote carefully. Everything she knew. Everything Spencer had confessed. Everything Wyatt had done. Dates, times, details. A complete record. If something happened to her, this document would survive. Somewhere someone would read it and know the truth. She sealed it in an envelope. Addressed it to Lucy, her sister. Asked the nurse to mail it. The nurse hesitated. I am not supposed to please. June let all her fear show. If something happens to me, I need my sister to know why. Please. The nurse took the envelope. I will mail it on my break. June sank back into the pillows. Her son was one floor up in the NICU. Colt was somewhere fighting a battle he could not win. And Wyatt was out there planning his next move. But June had planted one seed, one piece of insurance. If Wyatt killed her, the truth would not die with her. It was not much, but it was something. And sometimes something was enough to change everything. The hospital room was too quiet. June lay in the recovery bed, listening to machines beep and hiss, monitoring her vitals, telling her she was alive, when part of her felt completely dead inside. Down the hall, her son fought for every breath in the NICU. Outside her door, a deputy stood guard, not to protect her, but to make sure she could not escape the trap Wyatt had built around her. Thomas was murdered. Spencer was dead. Vera had chosen her killer's son over truth. And every piece of evidence had been systematically destroyed by a man who thought money could erase anything, even murder. June closed her eyes and tried to find some reserve of strength she had not already exhausted, tried to believe what Colt had said, that there was still a way to win this, but hope felt like a luxury she could no longer afford. A soft knock at the door. The deputy checked, then allowed someone in. Lucy stood there, June's younger sister. 23 years old, with their mother's auburn hair and their father's stubborn jaw. She carried a large purse, and her face was set in an expression June recognized. Lucy on a mission was a force of nature. You look terrible, Lucy said, sitting in the chair beside the bed. I just had emergency surgery, and my son is fighting for his life while the man who murdered my husband prepares to steal everything. So yes, I look terrible. Lucy reached into her purse. Pulled out the envelope June had sent. I got your letter. The nurse was very efficient. June had not expected it to arrive so fast. The nurse must have mailed it immediately. Did you read it, every word? Lucy's eyes were hard. And then I did some investigating of my own. What kind of investigating? The kind where I called every friend I have from journalism school and had them dig into Wyatt Calloway's business dealings. You would be amazed what you can find when you know where to look. She pulled out a folder, set it on June's lap. Inside were documents, financial records, bank statements, corporate filings, all marked with Lucy's neat handwriting arrows and notes connecting pieces of information. "Wyatt is broke," Lucy said. "Completely destroyed financially. His company, Porter Mining Equipment, filed for bankruptcy protection 3 months ago. He owes $2.3 million to some very unpleasant people, the kind who do not accept payment plans. We knew that part. What you did not know is that Wyatt had already signed contracts with Aquarius Holdings, promising them the water rights to your ranch. Contracts dated 2 months before Thomas died. He promised them exclusive access in exchange for $15 million, $5 million up front, $10 million on delivery." June stared at the papers. Before Thomas died. Wyatt had been planning this for months. The problem is that Wyatt did not own the water rights. Thomas did. So Wyatt forged Thomas's signature on the contracts and took the $5 million advance payment. He spent money he did not have. He paid off his most dangerous creditors and bought himself time. But when Aquarius sent engineers to survey the property and start drilling, Thomas found out, confronted Wyatt, threatened to expose the fraud and have him arrested. So Wyatt killed him before he could talk. Lucy nodded. But here is where it gets interesting. Aquarius Holdings is still expecting delivery on those water rights. They have paid $5 million and they want their aquifer access. They have been pressuring Wyatt for months, sending lawyers, making threats. And Wyatt keeps promising he is close to securing the rights, but he cannot without my signature. Or Colt's. Exactly. Which is why he has been trying so hard to either force you to sign or get you declared incompetent so he can sign for you. June's mind raced. If we can prove Wyatt forged Thomas's signature on those contracts, we prove fraud. And if we can prove the fraud led to Thomas's murder, we have motive. Better than that. Lucy pulled out more papers. "I contacted Aquarius Holdings directly, told them I was a journalist investigating water rights deals in Montana. They were very forthcoming, sent me copies of all their contracts with Wyatt, including the ones with Thomas's forged signature. You have the forgeries, I have everything. Contracts, payment records, emails between Wyatt and Aquarius discussing how to handle Thomas's refusal to cooperate. And one email in particular where Wyatt tells them not to worry, that Thomas will not be a problem much longer." June's breath caught. That is evidence of premeditation. That is evidence of murder conspiracy. Lucy smiled, grimly satisfied. And it gets better. Aquarius Holdings is furious with Wyatt because he has not delivered on his promises. They are threatening to sue him for fraud and breach of contract. They want their $5 million back, plus damages. How much damages? $20 million. June almost laughed. So even if Wyatt gets the ranch, even if he sells the water rights for $50 million, he will owe Aquarius $25 million just in lawsuit damages and repayment. He is trapped, Lucy agreed, which makes him more dangerous than ever. Desperate men do desperate things. We need to get this to the police. I already tried. Lucy's expression darkened. Sheriff Hayes refused to look at it, said the investigation into Spencer's suicide was ongoing and he could not be bothered with unrelated business matters. Wyatt got to him, or Wyatt paid him. Either way, Hayes is not going to help. Then who do we take this to? Lucy leaned forward. There is a state investigator, someone who specializes in fraud and corruption cases. His name is Marcus Webb. He has a reputation for going after powerful people when local authorities will not. I called him this morning. He is interested. How interested he is driving here from Helena right now. Should arrive in 3 hours. He wants to interview you, examine the documents, and hear everything you know about Thomas's death. Hope flickered in June's chest. Small, but real. This might work. It has to work, Lucy said, because I also learned something else. Wyatt filed emergency conservatorship papers this morning, claiming you are mentally incompetent and a danger to yourself and your baby. He has a court hearing scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow. That is impossible. You cannot get a hearing that fast. You can if you have connections and money. Wyatt has both. And if the judge grants conservatorship, Wyatt becomes legal guardian of your estate and your son. He can sign any documents he wants. Sell the ranch, sell the water rights, and there is nothing you or Colt can do to stop him. June felt panic rising. I need to get out of this hospital. Need to fight this. You need to stay here and recover. Lucy gripped her hand. "Let me handle Wyatt. Let Investigator Webb handle the evidence, and let Colt do what he does best." "What is that protect you?" Lucy glanced at the door. "He has been here all night." "Did you know that standing in the hallway?" "The deputy tried to make him leave 3 times. He refused. Said he made a promise to Thomas, and he was not breaking it for anyone." June's throat tightened. "Where is he now talking to your son's doctors, making sure baby Thomas is getting the best care, making sure nothing happens to him? I need to see Colt." "You will, but first you need to hear the rest." "There is more," Lucy hesitated, then pulled out one final document. "This is Dr. Spencer's suicide note, or what the police are calling a suicide note. A nurse gave me a copy. She did not trust the official story either." June read the handwritten letter. It was brief, rambling, talking about guilt and shame and not being able to live with what he had done. But at the bottom, almost as an afterthought, were 3 sentences that made June's blood run cold. "I recorded everything, every conversation with Wyatt, every detail of the plan. The recordings are hidden in my office, behind the anatomy poster, for whoever has the courage to listen." "He left evidence," June whispered. "Spencer left proof before he died, or before he was killed, and someone staged it to look like suicide." Lucy's expression was grim. "Either way, we need those recordings. The police will have searched his office, and if they are working for Wyatt, they will have destroyed anything incriminating. But maybe they missed something. Maybe Spencer hid them well enough. We need to search that office before Wyatt does. Already on it." Lucy stood. "Colt and I are heading there now. You stay here. Rest. Feed that baby when the nurses let you. And get ready to testify tomorrow at the conservatorship hearing. Lucy, be careful. Wyatt has already killed 2 people. He will not hesitate to kill you. He will have to catch me first. And I am very good at not being caught." Lucy left. June lay back and closed her eyes. 3 hours until the state investigator arrived. 24 hours until the court hearing that would determine her fate and her son's future. And somewhere in Spencer's abandoned office recordings that might prove everything. She pressed the call button. When the nurse arrived, June asked to see her son. "Mrs. Calloway, you really should rest. I need to see my baby, please." The nurse relented, brought a wheelchair, helped June into it despite the pain of moving so soon after surgery, wheeled her down 2 floors to the NICU. Through the glass window, June saw him, Thomas Colt Calloway, 5 pounds 3 ounces, too small too early but fighting, hooked up to monitors and IVs but breathing on his own. His tiny chest rose and fell with determination that reminded her so much of his father it hurt. A nurse inside the NICU smiled at June, gestured that she could come in if she gowned up properly. June did, scrubbing her hands until they were raw, putting on the sterile gown and mask. Then she was allowed to touch her son for the first time since birth. His skin was soft as silk, his fingers impossibly tiny. They wrapped around her pinky finger and gripped with surprising strength. "Hi, baby," June whispered. "I know everything is scary right now. I know you came into this world too early, and everything is too bright and too loud, and you just want to be safe. But I promise you, I am going to make sure you are safe. Your daddy died protecting you, and Colt and I are going to finish what he started." The baby's eyes opened, unfocused but searching, looking for the voice. "Your name is Thomas Colt. After 2 of the bravest men I have ever known. One gave you life, the other is giving you a future. And you are going to grow up knowing that good people fought for you. That truth mattered more than money. That family is not just blood, it is choice." She stayed until the nurses made her leave. 30 minutes of holding her son's hand and promising him a world better than the one that had killed his father. Back in her room, exhaustion pulled her under. She slept fitfully, dreaming of Thomas, of Spencer's haunted eyes, of Wyatt's cold smile. When she woke, afternoon light slanted through the blinds. Colt sat in the chair beside her bed. He looked like he had not slept in days, probably because he had not. "Lucy found the recordings," he said without preamble. "Spencer hid them exactly where he said. Behind the anatomy poster in his office. 3 cassette tapes, hours of conversations with Wyatt. Does Lucy have them?" She gave them to Investigator Webb when he arrived an hour ago. He is listening to them now. And June, they are damning. Wyatt confessing to the paraquat poisoning, discussing how to forge signatures, planning how to force you to sell, all of it on tape. Then we have him. Webb thinks so. He is getting warrants right now. For Wyatt's arrest, for his financial records, for everything. He said by this time tomorrow Wyatt Calloway will be in custody facing murder charges. June felt something release in her chest. Finally justice. There is one problem, Colt continued. Wyatt knows something is wrong. He showed up at the ranch 2 hours ago with a moving truck, started loading his things. Lucy thinks he's planning to run. Can Webb stop him? Not without a warrant. And the judge is reviewing the evidence now. Could take hours. Then Wyatt might escape. Not if I have anything to say about it. Colt stood. I am going back to the ranch, going to make sure Wyatt stays put until Webb can arrest him. Colt, no, he is dangerous. I know. But I made a promise to Thomas, and I am not letting the man who killed him walk away free. Take Lucy, take someone. Lucy is staying with the investigator, making sure nothing happens to those tapes. This is something I have to do. June grabbed his hand. Do not die protecting us, please. We need you alive. Colt looked at her, really looked at her, with those storm-gray eyes that had seen too much pain. You know I love you, right? He said it simply. Matter of fact, like stating the sky was blue. June's heart stopped. I am not asking you to say it back. Colt continued. I know you loved Thomas. Know he will always be part of your heart. But I needed you to know, in case something happens, that loving you and that baby is the best thing I have done with my life. Then he left. Before June could find words, before she could tell him she loved him too, had maybe loved him for weeks, but was too scared to admit it because loving someone meant risking losing them, and she could not survive that pain again. But Colt was gone, heading back to confront a killer, and June was trapped in a hospital bed, helpless to stop him. She looked at the clock. 4 p.m. The conservatorship hearing was tomorrow at 2. Wyatt's arrest warrant could come through any time, and somewhere between now and then, everything would either fall into place or fall apart completely. June prayed. For the first time since Thomas died, she prayed. Not to a specific God, just to the universe, to whatever force controlled fate and justice. Please, she thought, please let the good people win this time. Please let truth be stronger than money. Please keep Colt safe. The baby monitor beside her bed crackled. Sound from the NICU, her son crying. Tiny mewling sounds. The nurses would handle it. But June wanted to be there, wanted to hold him and tell him everything would be okay, even if she did not quite believe it herself. At the ranch, Colt found chaos. The moving truck was half full, boxes stacked everywhere. Wyatt directing 2 men who were loading furniture and belongings. Wyatt saw Colt's truck pull up. His expression went cold. You are trespassing, Hendricks. This is family property. I am executor of this estate, which means I have every right to be here. Colt walked toward the house. What are you doing relocating? My business requires me to move to Denver for a few months. Perfectly legal, perfectly convenient. Right when murder charges are about to be filed. Wyatt's face darkened. You need to be very careful about the accusations you make. Or what? You will kill me like you killed Thomas, like you killed Spencer. Spencer killed himself. Guilt over his incompetence treating my brother. Spencer was murdered. Just like Thomas, and I have proof. You have nothing. Wyatt stepped closer. You are a bastard with delusions of belonging. You have no legal standing, no evidence, and no future here. I have recordings. Spencer recorded every conversation you had, every confession, every detail of how you poisoned Thomas with contaminated insulin, how you forged his signature, how you threatened June. Wyatt went very still. You are lying. Investigator Marcus Webb is listening to those tapes right now, getting warrants for your arrest. You will be in handcuffs by nightfall. For the first time, fear flickered in Wyatt's eyes. Then it was replaced by something worse. Rage mixed with desperation. He turned to the men loading the truck. Leave, both of you. Now. Boss, we are not done. I said leave. The men looked at each other. Then at the gun Wyatt pulled from his jacket. They ran, got in their own truck, and drove away fast. Wyatt turned the gun on Colt. You should have stayed away, he said. Should have taken your bastard status and disappeared. But no, you had to play hero. Had to protect the poor widow and orphan. Very noble and very stupid. Colt did not move, did not show fear, just stood there, calm as stone. Shooting me does not solve your problems. The evidence still exists. Webb still has the recordings. But without you, June has no one. She will break. Sign whatever I want. And I will be long gone before any warrants are issued. You think you can run from this? I have money stashed offshore. New identity ready. By tomorrow, I will be in a country with no extradition treaty. Living well on the $5 million Aquarius paid me. What about the $20 million they are suing you for? Let them sue. They cannot collect from someone they cannot find. Colt took a step forward. Wyatt raised the gun higher. Do not, Wyatt warned. You are not going to shoot me. Why not? No witnesses. Self-defense claim. You were the executor who tried to steal the ranch. I caught you. We struggled. Gun went off. Tragic accident, except I am wearing a wire. Colt opened his jacket, showed the small recording device taped to his chest. Everything you just said, confession to murder, fraud, all of it, being transmitted directly to Investigator Webb. Wyatt's face went white, then purple with rage. You son of a bitch! He fired. The shot went wide. Colt dove behind a truck. Wyatt fired again. Glass exploded. Colt had his own gun. Had brought it knowing this might happen. He returned fire. Not to kill, just to keep Wyatt pinned down. Sirens in the distance, growing closer. Webb must have heard the gunshots through the wire, was sending police. Wyatt heard them too. He ran for his car. Colt stepped out, gun trained on him. Stop. It is over. It is not over until I say it is over. Wyatt aimed at Colt, but before he could fire, another shot rang out. Wyatt stumbled, looked down at the blood blooming on his shoulder, looked up in shock. Vera stood on the porch, Thomas's old hunting rifle in her hands. That is enough, she said, voice steady despite her shaking hands. You killed one of my sons. You will not kill the other. Mother Wyatt gasped. What are you doing? What I should have done months ago, choosing truth over blood, choosing justice over family loyalty. Police cars roared up the driveway, Sheriff Hayes looking furious, Investigator Webb looking satisfied. Deputies poured out, weapons drawn. Wyatt Calloway dropped the weapon, Hayes shouted. Wyatt looked around, at his mother who had shot him, at Colt who had outsmarted him, at the police surrounding him, at the ruins of all his plans. He dropped the gun. Webb walked forward with handcuffs. Wyatt Calloway, you are under arrest for the murder of Thomas Calloway, the murder of Dr. Malcolm Spencer, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted murder of June Calloway and Colt Hendricks, and about 15 other charges we are still working on. You have the right to remain silent. As they led Wyatt away bleeding and broken, he looked at Vera. You chose them over me, he said. Your own son. I chose the son who deserved it, Vera replied. Thomas was worth 10 of you, and I am sorry it took me so long to see that. Wyatt was loaded into a patrol car. As it drove away, Vera lowered the rifle, sank down on the porch steps. Colt sat beside her. Thank you, he said. Do not thank me. I am the one who created him, spoiled him, made him think the world owed him everything. Thomas turned out good despite me. Wyatt turned out evil because of me. You made the right choice today. Too late to save Thomas, but maybe not too late to save June and the baby. They sat in silence as the sun set, two people who should have been family but were strangers, united finally by grief and guilt and the determination to do better. The trial took 3 months to prepare. Wyatt's lawyers tried every trick, argued the recordings were illegally obtained, claimed Spencer's confessions were coerced, suggested Colt had framed Wyatt out of jealousy, but the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings played in court, hour after hour of Wyatt's voice, cold and calculating, discussing exactly how much paraquat to use, how to forge signatures convincingly, how to manipulate Spencer with money, how to threaten June into compliance. The Aquarius Holdings contracts, showing Wyatt had committed fraud 2 months before Thomas died. Financial records, proving Wyatt was desperately in debt. Vera's testimony, heartbreaking and damning, a mother choosing justice over her son. And finally, June's testimony, She took the stand on a Tuesday morning. Baby Thomas was 3 months old now, healthy and growing. Colt had brought him to the courthouse, but he waited outside. June did not want her son's first visit to a courtroom to be watching his uncle be convicted of murdering his father. The prosecutor asked June to tell the jury about Thomas, about their marriage, about his death. June spoke clearly. No tears, just facts delivered with the weight of absolute truth. My husband was murdered over water rights worth $50 million, murdered by his own brother, poisoned slowly over 3 months with contaminated insulin, and I will never get to tell him he was right. About Wyatt, about the danger, about everything. Wyatt's lawyer tried to shake her on cross-examination, suggested she was biased, motivated by greed to inherit the ranch. June looked the lawyer dead in the eye. I did not want the ranch, she said. I wanted my husband. I wanted my son to have a father. Wyatt took that from us, not for the ranch, for money he has already spent, money that meant more to him than his brother's life. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder of Thomas Calloway, first-degree murder of Dr. Malcolm Spencer, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted murder. The list went on. Sentencing came a week later. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Wyatt showed no emotion as the sentence was read, just stared straight ahead like he was already somewhere else. But as they let him out, he looked at June one last time. It was not supposed to be like this, he said. Thomas was supposed to understand, supposed to help me. We were brothers. You killed him, June said simply. You do not get to call him brother anymore. They took Wyatt away. June never saw him again. Dr. Spencer's family sued his estate, wanted the $50,000 returned. June testified on their behalf. The money was recovered and given to Spencer's daughters for their medical school tuition. It did not bring their father back, but it meant his final act leaving those recordings had accomplished something beyond his own destruction. 1 year later, the ranch in springtime was transformed. New fences ran straight and true. The barn had been rebuilt, painted bright red. Cattle grazed in pastures fed by water from the aquifer, not sold to California developers, but used exactly as Thomas had wanted, to build something sustainable. June stood on the porch watching Colt work with a young horse in the corral, patient and gentle, the same way he was with everything. Baby Thomas, 14 months old now, toddled beside her, walking but unsteady, reaching for her hand when he lost balance. "Mama," he said, his favorite word. "Yes, baby, I am here." Colt saw them watching, smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. He finished with the horse and walked over, lifted Thomas into his arms. The boy squealed with delight. "Airplane time," Thomas demanded. Colt held him up high, making swooping sounds. Thomas laughed so hard he got hiccups. June watched them, her son and the man who had chosen to be his father, not by blood, by choice. "You know we should probably talk about this," she said. "Talk about what us? This. Whatever we are." Colt set Thomas down. The boy immediately ran after a chicken. Colt and June watched him go. "What do you want us to be?" Colt asked. June considered. They had lived together for a year, raised Thomas together, run the ranch together, slept in separate bedrooms, but spent every waking moment side by side, partners in every way except the legal one. "I do not know if I am ready for marriage," she admitted. "Thomas is still part of me, still part of this house. I do not want to erase him. I am not asking you to erase him." Colt turned to face her. "Thomas will always be Thomas Colt's father, will always be the first man you loved. I am not trying to replace him. Then what are you trying to do? Build something new alongside what was. You, me, the baby. We are family already. Paper does not change that. So you do not want to get married either. Someday maybe, when it feels right, when Thomas Colt is old enough to understand. When you are ready to say vows that do not feel like betrayal." June took his hand. "You are a good man, Colt Hendricks. I am a man who made promises and kept them. The rest is just details." Thomas toddled back, chicken feather in hand. "Coke." He could not quite say Colt yet. Named him anyway. Colt scooped him up, spun him around. The boys' laughter rang out across the valley. Vera visited every Sunday. The relationship with June was still complicated, probably always would be. But she was Thomas Colt's grandmother, and she had chosen the right side when it mattered most. That counted for something. The aquifer water had made the ranch profitable. Not $50 million profitable, but sustainable profitable. June had hired 3 ranch hands, young men learning the trade, the way Thomas would have wanted. She had also established the Thomas Callaway Memorial Scholarship for kids who wanted to study agriculture but could not afford it. Funded by a portion of the ranch profits every year. It would not bring Thomas back, but it meant his name stood for something beyond murder and greed. June looked out at the land, at the cattle and horses, at the green fields fed by water Thomas had died protecting, at her son playing in the dirt with the man who had given up everything to keep them safe. This was not the life she had planned, not the future she had imagined when she married Thomas, but it was good, real, built on truth and sacrifice and love that came in unexpected packages. She thought about Thomas sometimes, wondered what he would think of all this, of Colt raising his son, of June loving another man, of the ranch thriving. She liked to think he would be happy, that he was watching from wherever good men went when they died, seeing his brother and his wife and his son building the future he had fought for. The sun set gold and purple over the mountains. Thomas toddled over to June, arms up. She lifted him. He nestled against her shoulder, suddenly tired. "Home," he said, another favorite word. "Yes, baby, we are home," and for the first time since Thomas died, June felt like that was true. They were home, safe, together. A family forged not by blood but by choice and struggle and the determination to honor the dead by living well. Colt came and stood beside them. His arm went around June's shoulders, not possessive, just present. "Good day?" he asked. "Good day?" June agreed. They stood together on the porch as darkness fell, the 3 of them. And somewhere in the wind that rustled through the cottonwood trees, June swore she heard Thomas's voice. "Thank you, brother, for keeping them safe, for finishing what I started, for being the man I knew you were." She looked at Colt, saw the peace in his face, the belonging he had searched for his whole life. And she knew that whatever happened next, they would face it together, not as widow and protector, but as partners, as family, as people who had survived the worst and chosen to build something beautiful from the ruins. The ranch lights came on, golden and warm against the night. Inside, dinner waited. Chores were done. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they were safe. And that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. The end.